A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 58.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curran and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass. Living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curran. And today we continue part 2 in our series on gamification, and this is Grab Goals by the Short Hairs. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Tom. Welcome. This is going to be a short episode today, but I think it's a very important episode because we're talking about goals. And, I think a lot of people out there have trouble with goals. They don't really see the big picture. And that in essence, what goals boil down to. It's goals are something that's very broad and they're not necessarily measurable or even tangible. You can't necessarily feel them. And it's something kind of like almost like a vision that you set your eyes on. It's the big picture view. That is much different than objectives. And I think that objectives are something that even if you have a picture of where you want to head, sometimes it's often difficult to kind of narrow that down to the specific tasks that you have to take to get there. I think many times too, like because you can't feel it and you can't touch it, you don't really know if you get there or not. Back when I was in college, I've always been an avid lover of music, but back in college, reading all of these, CDs were brand new back then, and they used to offer all these like liner notes. And I remember reading them and thinking, man, I just really don't know very much about the bands that I like and I listen to. So I started reading them. And you know what? Before I knew it, I actually had a lot more knowledge than I even recognized or that I even knew. I knew a lot more than my friends. So as you look at your goals, look at where you're heading, think about how you're measuring that and how you're making that determination of how and when you reach your goals. How do you know that?
So, John, for this episode, I referred back to a book that I'd read a while ago by Brian Tracy, and it's called No Excuses, The Power of Self-Discipline. And within that book, he talks about 7 different points that you should make when you try to reach goals. I'm just going to cover them real quickly, and then we can talk about them. So, number 1 is decide what you want. Number 2 is write it down. Number 3 is set a deadline and be specific about that. 4, make a list of everything you could think about that you can possibly do to achieve your goal. Number 5 is organize your list by both sequence and priority. 6 is take action on your plan immediately. And number 7 is do something every day that moves you towards that major goal.
Yeah, as I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking back about these financial goals that my wife and I have been working for towards the last 10 years, really. And we started with just 2 simple goals, and it really helped us get our asses moving. Those goals were to have money in the bank and to not owe anybody any money. So having those 2 goals in mind were very important to my wife and I, because we used to argue about money a lot. But once we decided on those goals and we agreed upon those 2 goals, the arguments kind of went away, because then the nature of the conversation changed to, when things came up or we wanted to spend money, if either one of us wanted to spend money, we'd ask ourselves the very simple question. And that question is, does this bring us closer to our goals or further away from it? And if it brought us goals, then it was an absolute yes. If it brought us farther away, like, I don't know, it's just spending money on something trivial, The answer was no, and it took the argument right out of it for us, because and that's how I think we've lived our life for the last 10 years. We've kept those goals in our mind, and that's helped us in our decision making process in our day-to-day life. Because as soon as you start getting some traction, life has a tendency to throw things at you to get you off course.
Right. So you guys were very specific. You basically had a goal in your crosshairs per se, and I know we talk about grabbing goals by the short hairs, but that's really what you're doing. You're really focusing so much, saying what is it that we really, really want to attain, and then you don't deviate. You make sure that you're always working towards that goal. And since you guys had a goal in common, that gave you someone that had accountability, and someone that you could talk about. And also you guys probably celebrated victories when you look back and say, wow, we paid off a big chunk of this, it's a burden relieved off our shoulders.
Yeah. Tom, I would say, yes, that's true, but let's not get caught up. I think there's a confusion, a difference in terms here. I mean, goals are very, broad based, and not necessarily that they don't have to be specific. They can be vague. You're not going to be able to touch them, or you might feel them, but it's not tangible, and it's broad. I think where we really got traction, and it often gets confused with goals, are objectives. Now, objectives are very specific to say, okay, we're going to pay off this credit card. It's this amount, and it ties into your goals. And it's a way of reaching your goals. But I think that's where the objective are the day-to-day tasks that you have to make, and you can have many you can have many of them, and those objectives might even change, because how many times have you gone down a road, and as you gain experience, like you think you want something, but as you move down that road, you learn something that tells you, what, I don't think I want this anymore, and it takes you off track. But I don't see there's anything wrong with that, because we're living and we're learning, and we're not perfect. And how else do you know what you want until you really get it? I mean, look at all these people out here in corporate America who devoted a lot of time, money, and effort to get a degree in college and get their dream job, only to find out that that's not really their dream job. That's not something they really want, and they kind of signed up for something that they really didn't know much about.
Right. And they signed up for their day prison.
Yeah. So, I think, again, goals can be lofty. They can be just, out of touch, and that's good. It's always good to kind of stretch yourself and aim high. Back in high school, we had a psychology teacher named Mrs. Spungen. I think she's long past, but something I learned from her back in high school so many years ago was that you should always aim high, aim for the biggest possible goal that you can think of, because say, like, and this is a terrible analogy, because who the hell wants to be president? But if you aim for president and only make senator or even make governor, those are still great accomplishments and nothing to be looked down upon. Actually, some people would say making president is something to be looked down upon, because who wants that?
Donald Trump.
But
no, I know it's like aim for the sky and you'll hit your ceiling. It's definitely, and we talk about this even on our homepage of swiftkickinass.com, talking about in martial arts, when you punch something, you punch through it. So because your brain actually hinders you and stops you before you hit the object. So it's always same thing with, like you said, with reaching goals. You would aspire for more, for the best, and then you'll probably get what you really need.
Yeah. I mean, you need to push yourself as far as goals, and sometimes goals are going to take you much longer to go for it. It's best to give some type of time frame with goals, so that you have something to aim for. But like say for instance, my financial goals with my wife, I planned on it taking 5 years, and it took us twice the time.
Now, did you write that goal down, or did you guys just talk about it?
We wrote it down. In fact, I have a piece of paper in my desk that lists exactly what we want, very specifically, what we want. And then after I wrote that, I kind of just put it away. And I suggest that our listeners do that too. Like, write down the things that you want. Write them down. It just in a list. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, or just a simple list. Write it down and then tuck that away. And I guarantee that if you have 10 goals listed, without even thinking about it, if you look down, find that list a year later, you'll be amazed at how many items you've crossed off that list. Because when you write that down, it becomes real. It's just a piece of paper, but it's something that you can feel and touch. And your mind, our minds work in mysterious ways. And in your mind, when the simple act of writing that down makes it real.
I've read that only 3% of adults have written goals or plans, and that those 3% earn more than the 97% of the others that don't have written goals.
Yes. And this is not anything new. Dale Carnegie's Think and Grow Rich, which is, a very, very old book. That's really what got me started on writing down specific goals. This isn't necessarily about growing rich, but it is about setting goals and reaching them.
John,
forward.
Now there's also, we live in an age where you have so many different aids. Pen and paper is probably the best, but if you're someone that's really into technology, get an app. There's so many apps out there that can help you, attain your goals or keep you on track or send you daily reminders, hey, how you doing? And it's kind of like a set and forget. And then the thing just constantly pesters you. And, the more you see this little app, saying, hey, checking in, seeing how you're doing, that's will help you and push you along your way. It's almost like having an accountability partner.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, pen and paper works best because I think there's a lot to be said for physically, using a pen and writing it down and taking that time. But, different strokes for different folks. Whatever works best for you, really. I think the important thing is to...
Right, because remember, we have a whole generation coming up behind us that pen and paper is not really their thing. They've been typing since they were little kids and, using the phones and, that's their world. Technology is their world, and that's how they think. And that's what's up with them. Most people, in that generation, they'll have their phone with them all the time, no matter what, and they're always checking their phone. So if their phone is sitting there saying, hey, how are you doing on reaching your goals, it's a constant reminder for them.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think all of our brains, they work in different ways. Like I remember back in the days before computers, before word processors, we had to type things. And, if you don't know what a typewriter is, Google it and you'll see the pictures of it.
I don't know if you remember using whiteout, liquid paper. Or, sometimes the margins would be a little screwy, and it would take so long just to get set up to try to even prepare to get your thoughts on paper that it was such a frustrating tool.
Yeah, it's not very green either, is it? Because of all those crumpled pieces of paper
and
on the
ink.
ground.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great way of kind of comparing the way our minds think. And with a word processor, you don't need liquid paper. You just hit delete. You can delete pages or paragraphs or just one word. It changes the way you think and the way you approach the problem. For me, my mind works a lot better typing it out on a word processor.
We have these older gentlemen at my Cuban radio station, and they are diehards where they didn't, when the word processor first came out, they didn't want to use it. And even well into, past year 2000, when everyone was on computers, they were still hacking away on typewriters. Maybe they liked that that little sound, and it made them, get their adrenaline going up. But we finally had to take them away at work and say, listen, you have to move to a computer.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Yep.
I could see where like some people need a ceiling fan on at night, or a fan. They need some type of ambient noise.
That's me.
To sleep. Yeah, to sleep. I remember from all the sleepovers we had as kids.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep at your house because it was dead quiet, man.
Yeah. See, I'm used to dead quiet, and now I'm not so used to the heat. I mean, I go down to Florida and stay at my mom's house, and she has the air conditioning on at like 82 degrees. I'm like, you're killing me. You're nothing but your underwear pants, as my 5-year-old would say, and you're just sweating, and you don't even want to put a sheet on because it's like so freaking hot. Anyhow, that takes us away from the goals and probably gives our listeners a terrible vision. There's a great acronym to use for that you can use for making goals and objectives more powerful. It's called SMART. Just think SMART. S stands for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable. You should definitely make it, even if they're lofty goals, it shouldn't be so far out of reach that you have no hope for attaining it. So being attainable is important.
Like, I want to be a rapper called Warm Vanilla Sugar. What do you think my chances are?
God, I hope that's not attainable. I mean, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Relevant. R stands for relevant. It needs to be relevant to your life, and as Tom is joking about Warm Vanilla Sugar, I don't think it's very relevant. I don't think he really wants to be a rapper. Do you? Do you want to wear a big clock on your chest and big gold chains? And
first of all, I've met Flavor Flav, or however you say his name, and he has that big clock around his neck, and it was back when I used to drive a taxi when I was in college, and I had scheduled to pick him up because we had taken him, me and another guy had organized to take him to his concert the day before. So I was the return trip on the airport. Well, let me tell you, man, that clock must be moving backwards because that sucker was like 45 minutes late. And he got billed accordingly.
I think it's funny that we're on relevant, because I don't think Flavor Flav is very relevant anymore.
No.
Does anybody ever know?
He's Public Enemy. He's one of the first rap bands. But anyways, what I was saying is that the whole name with the Warm Vanilla Sugar, that came from, I was at my sister-in-law's house one day, and she had this hand lotion, and it was called Warm Vanilla Sugar. So here recently, I was joking in jiu-jitsu class, and so everyone calls me Warm Vanilla Sugar. Well, wouldn't you know that my wife, Jen, she goes down to the bathroom at the jiu-jitsu school, and what do they have in there as the soap? Warm Vanilla Sugar.
And and it's funny too that you mentioned Flavor Flav, because the T in SMART is time bound. And he has a big clock on a big watch on his chest. So definitely when you're setting goals, put some type of time frame on there that will help you realize, because we all have big ideas, and we all have visions in our heads about things that we would like to have, or even things that we expect, but oftentimes we don't put any time frame on them, and that's not a true goal. How do you know if you reach those goals? In some future episodes, we're going to be talking about feedback and ways to measure your goals. So we won't go into that much, but just remember that acronym: SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And that will help you make your goals much more powerful. And then once you have some powerful goals in hand, then you can start creating objectives, the day-to-day tactical things that you must do that are going to lead you to that goal that you create.
Now, John, I think this works for someone that's stable and someone that's ready to work towards goals. The problem, I think, that why a lot of people fail in goals is they have something else holding them back. And we've talked about this in other episodes, whether it's fear, maybe you fear success, or maybe you fear what might happen if you try to, try something, or your fear of being laughed at. There's also addictions. People are addicted. We talked about pornography. That can take up a lot of your time that you should be, maybe applying towards your goal, and you spend your time looking at pornography. Or it could be TV, or it could be food, or it could be another person. Whatever it is that's standing in your way, sometimes you have to take care of that before you can move along and start to progress.
Yeah, you know what? And on that same note, I think a lot of us get caught up and spend a lot of time thinking about things that are not necessarily within their control. So as you think about your goals, really give that some really deep, hard thought about, is this something that you can control, or is it something that's just beyond your control? If it's not within your control, why are you thinking about it? Why is it taking up your precious time? If you can't control it, let it go.
I know we're not necessarily talking about accountability today, but that's the other thing that Brian Tracy was saying. You should make a list of people that should cooperate and help you reach your goal. That might be someone that, is an accountability partner, or just might be just putting it out there and letting other people know what you're working towards. And then when you see them, say, hey, how's that, that plan coming, or whatever it is that you're working on. And it kind of helps reinforce where you're going. Plus, sometimes they can help you. Maybe they open up avenues and make a shortcut to attain your goal.
Yeah. Also, if a lot of us, we create goals that really don't necessarily have an end. Like playing Tetris, we mentioned Tetris. Tetris is a game in which you really can't win. It's just a constant challenge to yourself, and that's why you enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with trying to create a life in which you're constantly challenging yourself, and there really is no winning. There is no end point. It's a constant pushing yourself to see how you can better yourself.
John, do you want to cover, since this is part 2 in the gamification series, why is this related to gamification? How did this fall into that aspect that we were talking about?
Well, go back to, I've mentioned my financial goals. At that time, that was probably one of the lowest times in my life. I mean, when you're up to your eyeballs in debt, it's a terrible way to live. And of course, not only am I saddled with debt at that time, but there were things that we really needed and things that my family needed. And I had no money really to get those things, like a mattress. We had this old 15-year-old mattress. I think it caused my wife and I a lot of back problems. And it was terrible. So I had a list of things that I wanted in life, but I was also saddled with debt. So I had no way to pay for them. And I made a game. The way I got those things is I made a game of it. I made a list of the things that I wanted. I even wrote down how much I thought it would cost me to do. So as I could, kind of mentally prepare to cross these things off my list, I kind of knew what I was up against. And what the game was is that I tried to beat that price. And as I came up with different, as I was able to gather up some cash to pay for these things, what I found is that I beat my price by half. I mean, most of the time, it never really cost me what I expected it to, because I think I lowered my expectations, quite frankly, and I learned how to solve the problem rather than being fixated on something very specific, like a certain name brand or, something very specific. I was able to say, okay, what's the problem? How do I best solve it with the money that I have? And I think that skill is a great life skill to have. But yeah, you can make a game out of this, and
plus all games, you have to have a goal or a strategy in order to, reach your final destination, right?
Yeah, and recognize, there's a difference between goals and objectives and even strategy. Strategy is an approach to say, like, okay, if I'm trying to pay off debt, one strategy might be to increase your income, get a new job where you're making more money. But it might also, another strategy that you could actually work in tandem with that is by reducing your living expenses. So you're increasing your income and you're decreasing your living expenses, and you're throwing all the extra money at your debt. That's what we've been doing for the last 10 years.
Well, think back, John. I know we're going to kick it back into the 1970s, and remember with Miss Pac-Man, right? And when our goal of that game, lots of time was just to see if you've got the first 2 rounds out of the way, all of a sudden there would be a little cartoon and it would show Pac-Man chasing around the ghost, and then he would come back. And then if you went further along, and this was Miss Pac-Man, I guess, it would show how Mr. Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man met. And every couple of rounds you'd have something. So it gave you like a motivation to try to get to the next level. Or even, if you had some kind of kung fu game, if you got to the next level, there would be, a different scenery or different props and different boss. So it constantly gave you those goals to attain to.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk about that in future episodes about feedback. What that is that's a little reward for the players, that once they reach a certain, once they reach a certain threshold, once they reach a certain point in the game, you get this little reward watching little Pac-Man running around or something. It was entertaining at the time.
Now I have a video that I wanted to play. It's just going to be audio from a video about goal setting. Do you care to hear it right now?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Didn't want to interrupt your thought. This is found by Peg Leg Panda. That's a cool name on YouTube if you want to look for it. It's like, before you make your goals, watch this.
There will never be a point in your life where it's the right time to do a great thing. If you're waiting for that perfect moment, that perfect timing, it's not going to happen. You know what you have to do? You have to create the perfect time and the perfect opportunity and the perfect situation.
Is that a lot of people become comfortable. They stop growing. They stop wanting anything. They become satisfied. People getting ready to go to jobs that they don't like, jobs that are making them sick. You see, when you're not pursuing your goal, you are literally committing spiritual suicide. When you have some goal out here that you're stretching for and reaching for that takes you out of your comfort zone, you'll find out some talents and abilities you have that you didn't know you have. When the messenger of misery visits you, what are you going to do? What will keep you in the game?
There are things that you think you'll never need to know, that you may only need to know one time in your life, but that could save your life because you had that knowledge.
Unless you attempt to do something beyond that which you've already mastered, you will never grow. What is it that you looked at some point in time and you decided that you couldn't do it, that you talked yourself out of it?
You're waiting on your next door neighbor to make it happen for you. It may not happen. If you're waiting on your mother or your father, they may be so ancient in their thinking that they don't understand this opportunity that you have. And if you're waiting on them, it may never get done. You don't beg average people to be phenomenal. You don't beg good people to be phenomenal. You just are phenomenal, and you will attract phenomenal.
What reason can you remember that you can call on, that you can reach on, that can make you get back up? Find that reason.
If you're not where you are, if you're not where you want to be, if you don't have what you want to have, if you're not where you think you should be at this particular place, it has nothing to do with the system, but it has everything to do with the fact that you're not making the sacrifice. I want you to make that dream become a reality, because if you don't, you will be working for somebody else to make their dreams become a reality.
So, John.
Man, that's powerful. I mean, that is super powerful. I really do firmly believe that if you always chasing after happiness, you are never going to be happy, because you're always going to be chasing it. That's why we talk about mindfulness, being appreciative of the moment that you're in, because none of us are guaranteed another moment. Be happy with what you have. Always be searching and stretching and trying to reach for things, but be happy with what you have. This is a somewhat of a game in which we're constantly challenging ourselves, and there is no real endpoint. For each and every one of us, we all have the same endpoint, and we can't take anything with us when we go there. So enjoy the moment, keep challenging yourself, and keep moving forward.
Do you have any parting thoughts before we start to wrap this up?
I think I just said them.
That's what I wanted to make sure before I hit the music. This is Tom Stewart. I'm joined with John Curran. Thank you for listening to A Swift Kick in the Ass. Make sure to check out our website at swiftkickinass.com. Sign up for our email list, and on there, you'll grab access to our membership site. It has courses, tools, and all kinds of goodies in there for you.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
See you.
Catch you next time.
Peace.
Peace.